If you walk into any WTA tournament in the United States this year, you will witness a bizarre phenomenon. Thousands of Asian American fans are turning traditional tennis courts into massive festivals. They do not come to cheer for the local American players. They are showing up in droves for a 21-year-old girl from the Philippines named Alex Eala. But this shocking obsession is not just simple national pride. There is a massive and profound truth unfolding in the stands right now. It goes far beyond waving a flag. People are driving across state lines. They are spending thousands of dollars just to watch her warm up. You have to ask yourself what is actually going on here. The tennis world is completely confused by this level of dedication. Sports media cannot explain why a player who is just now cracking the top 40 is drawing bigger crowds than established Grand Slam champions. The sheer volume of people following her every move is staggering. We are talking about sold-out qualifiers and practice sessions packed to the absolute brim. This is not normal behavior for casual tennis fans. Something deeply emotional is triggering this response. You might think it is just because she represents their home country. That is what the commentators keep repeating on television. They are completely wrong. The real reason these stadiums are shaking has nothing to do with geography. By the end of this breakdown, you will understand the exact psychological trigger she is pulling. It is a secret weapon that no other player possesses. It is changing the entire landscape of professional tennis. To grasp the true scale of this earthquake, we first need to look at exactly where Alex Eala stands right now. She has just rocketed up the WTA rankings to number 38 in the world. She is fighting her way through the most brutal season imaginable. The tour is dominated by physical giants from the United States and Eastern Europe. These are players who have had access to elite academies since they could walk. Eala is stepping onto the court against athletes who hit harder and serve faster. Yet she is standing her ground and winning crucial matches. This brings us to the monumental force backing her up. There are over 4 million Filipino Americans living in the United States today. This is a massive community with immense cultural pride and spending power. Historically, this demographic has been fiercely passionate about boxing and basketball. They have rallied behind legends in those arenas for decades. But professional female tennis has always been a locked fortress. There has never been a global icon from the Philippines to break through that specific ceiling. The sport has remained highly exclusive and culturally distant for many Asian communities. Until now, suddenly, there is a young woman tearing down those historical barriers, one baseline rally at a time. The hunger for this exact kind of representation has been building up for generations. It is like a dormant volcano finally erupting. When Eala steps onto the court in Miami or Rome, she is carrying the accumulated hopes of millions. Every time her racket strikes the ball, it feels like a collective strike against decades of invisibility. The stakes are incredibly high, because she is proving that someone who looks like them can conquer the most elitist arenas in the world. You can feel the electric tension in the air before she even serves. Fans are crying in the stands. Grandparents who have never watched a tennis match in their lives are suddenly learning the scoring system. Teenagers are putting down their phones and watching entire 3-set matches. This is a cultural awakening happening in real time. We are witnessing the birth of a new athletic lineage. The media tries to paint this as a cute underdog story, but they are missing the raw intensity of what is actually happening. Every single match she plays feels like a championship final. The pressure on her shoulders must be absolutely crushing. Imagine walking out to play a simple first-round match and seeing a sea of people who look at you like you are their only hope. Most 21-year-old players would completely shatter under that weight. Eala does not shatter. She feeds on it. She uses that heavy expectation to fuel her ground strokes. She stands at a distinct physical disadvantage against the towering frames of the current top 10. Those players can rely on massive free points from their serves. Eala has to construct every single point with meticulous strategy and relentless movement. She has to run down every ball and fight for every inch of the baseline. Watching her play is watching a masterclass in survival. This is exactly what her fans see when they look at her. They see their own struggles reflected in her matches. The sacrifices made by immigrant families are mirrored in every grueling rally she endures. She embodies the ultimate blue-collar work ethic placed directly into a country club environment. The contrast is incredibly stark and completely mesmerizing. You cannot look away when she is pushed into a corner because you know she is about to fight her way out. This is not just about hitting yellow fuzzy balls over a net. It is a daily statement of existence and defiance. The energy in the stadium reflects this deep connection. It is loud and chaotic, and completely unapologetic. The traditional tennis crowd does not know how to handle this raw emotion. They expect quiet clapping and polite silence. Instead, they are getting a roaring tidal wave of passion. We need to dive deeper into the mechanics of this obsession. You cannot create this level of fanatical devotion just by hitting a good forehand. There is a specific emotional frequency she is hitting that resonates with every single person watching her. It connects to the universal struggle of having to work twice as hard to get half the recognition. If you have ever felt completely overlooked or underestimated in your own life, you know exactly why this story hits so hard. You watch her fight out there, and you cannot help but want to see her tear down the whole system. That raw desire to see the underdog finally win is universal. If you resonate with that feeling, and want to keep exploring these deep psychological layers of sports, become a part of our channel today so we can keep uncovering these stories together. Stick with me as we examine the specific matches where this roaring crowd actually altered the physical reality on the court. This phenomenon is starting to move beyond the comprehension of Western sports media. From the Miami Open to smaller courts across the United States, wherever Alex Eala is, tickets are swept clean by a completely new audience. You expect huge crowds at the US Open final. You do not expect a massive traffic jam outside a minor qualifying round on a Tuesday morning in Florida. Yet that is exactly what happened. Thousands of people lined up hours before the gates even opened. They completely flooded the outer courts just to secure a metal bleacher seat in the brutal humidity. Tournament organizers had to scramble extra security simply because the sheer volume of bodies was unprecedented for an early round match. The food vendors ran out of water. The merchandise tents were emptied within an hour. This level of disruption is unheard of for a player ranked outside the top 20. It breaks every single predictive model the WTA relies on for ticket sales. The mathematical algorithms cannot process why a 21-year-old is single-handedly floating the local economy of these tournament cities. We have to examine the irrational nature of this behavior to understand the gravity of the situation. Tennis is a notoriously expensive sport to follow live. Premium tickets can cost hundreds of dollars for a single session. Travel and accommodation easily push that financial burden into the thousands. Why are working-class families draining their savings to sit in the scorching sun for a first-round match? Why are people driving 4 hours from Orlando to Miami in terrible traffic just to watch her stretch during a morning warm-up session? You see elderly grandmothers walking with canes slowly making their way up stadium steps just to get a glimpse of her practice court. You see nurses coming straight from overnight shifts wearing their scrubs because they refuse to miss a single point. Why are individuals who do not even know the difference between a break point and a baseline winner screaming themselves hoarse? They do not know the technical rules. They do not care about the official etiquette of keeping absolute quiet during a crucial serve. They just know they have to be there. They have an undeniable physical need to be present in that arena. It defies all conventional sports logic and infuriates traditional tennis purists. If a fan does not understand the technical aspects of a topspin backhand, what exactly are they paying to see? You cannot write this off as a temporary hype train or a fleeting viral moment. This is a sustained and escalating campaign of physical presence. She played a tiny tournament in a small suburban town just last month. The seating capacity was maybe 500 people at most. Over 3,000 fans showed up and stood outside the chain-link fences just to catch a glimpse of her walking from the transport van to the locker room. They brought homemade banners. They brought heavy megaphones. They turned a quiet and pristine country club parking lot into a deafening and chaotic rally. The tournament directors were completely bewildered by the sheer noise. The local police had to redirect traffic on the main highway to accommodate the overflow of cars. A single unseated tennis player literally paralyzed an entire suburban grid. This is the true definition of madness. It is a level of fanaticism that makes the craziest soccer crowds look completely tame in comparison. The sheer dedication required to endure these conditions is staggering. What exactly makes a community historically obsessed with high-contact sports like basketball and boxing sit under the scorching sun for hours just to watch a tennis match? Most analysts conclude this is simply the hometown effect in action. But they are completely wrong. The Filipino-American community does not show up just to see their national colors displayed on a scoreboard. They are showing up to witness a literal fight for survival on the court. This is not about casually waving a flag and cheering for a local athlete. This is about watching someone actively dismantle giants. The truth is that they are deeply obsessed with the pure underdog narrative playing out in front of them every single week. The modern WTA Tour is absolutely dominated by physical titans. You have players from Russia and the United States standing well over 6 feet tall. They possess massive wingspans and devastating serves that break the sound barrier. Eala steps onto the court, giving up distinct advantages in raw height and sheer muscular power. She looks exactly like David walking into a stadium full of Goliaths. This visual contrast creates a powerful psychological framing known as the Bayanihan spirit. It is an ancient cultural concept of communal unity and carrying a shared heavy burden together. When Eala is down a set and facing a blistering serve from a much larger opponent, she is never fighting alone. The crowd recognizes that specific and painful struggle. They see a physical manifestation of their own difficult immigrant journey, right there on the baseline. They know exactly what it feels like to walk into a corporate room or a new country where everyone else has an inherent structural advantage. They know what it means to be physically smaller or historically overlooked by the establishment. When she refuses to yield a single inch of the baseline against a barrage of heavy ground strokes, they see their own stubborn resilience reflected back at them. She is weaponizing their collective grit and turning it into kinetic energy. Every time she tracks down an impossible drop shot, she is validating their entire cultural identity. This goes way beyond hitting a tennis ball. It is a live public demonstration of sheer willpower overcoming massive genetic disadvantages. This revelation completely flips how we must understand the crowds in the stands. They are not mere tennis fans watching a sporting event. They are a deeply connected community, actively participating in a cultural defense mechanism. I am intensely curious if you have ever felt this kind of instant soul connection to an athlete based purely on their struggle against impossible odds. Tell me exactly how that raw underdog energy impacted you down in the comments, because understanding that specific feeling is the absolute key to unlocking this entire phenomenon. We have seen this exact type of cultural earthquake before, but we have never seen it disrupt a tennis court. Think about the absolute global frenzy surrounding Manny Pacquiao during his absolute prime. He did not just represent a sovereign country in the violent boxing ring. He represented the indomitable and terrifying spirit of a significantly smaller fighter stepping up in dangerous weight classes to completely destroy massive established champions. He terrified the boxing elites because his blinding speed and massive heart could not be measured by traditional analytics or scouting reports. Eala is pulling that exact same mythical and disruptive energy directly into the sterile and wealthy world of professional tennis. She is effectively the Manny Pacquiao of the baseline. She brings the raw emotional chaos of a street fight to a sport that strictly demands total polite silence. The tennis establishment secretly hates this disruption. The traditionalists and the wealthy box seat owners want her loud fans to sit down and be quiet. But the crowd knows that their deafening noise is the great equalizer. They roar with absolute ferocity because they know their roar physically shrinks the giant standing on the other side of the net. They shout loudly between the first and second serves because they want the Goliath to feel their heavy presence creeping into their mind. This is an active and intentional rebellion against the exclusionary country club atmosphere. They are breaking the unwritten rules because those rules were never made for them in the first place. When you realize this psychological warfare, the puzzle pieces finally lock together perfectly. You stop seeing a rowdy and disorganized crowd, and you start seeing a highly organized tactical unit. They are literally transmitting raw emotional energy directly into her racket. She actively feeds off this fierce defiance. The louder and more obnoxious they get, the harder and flatter she hits the ball. The more the frustrated umpire begs the crowd for quiet, the more the fans realize the true extent of their disruptive power. It is a beautiful and absolutely terrifying cycle of momentum that no single opponent knows how to effectively counter. And if you still doubt the invisible and destructive power of this communal spirit, look at how it actually flips the script right on the clay and hard courts.